All right, touring. Today is the first day of you hopefully not being an auto anymore. Automatics are so tragic. Just letting her cool off a little bit so I don't burn the absolute hell out of my hands. But the plan is to drive it home later with a manual. Well, I'm gonna get it draining out while I pull the front under tray and stress member. Then I will start on the exhaust, hit that with some PP Blaster, get that pulled. Then heat shields, then trans K member, then drive shaft, then shifter, then trans electronics, then torque converter bolts, then bell housing bolts, then trans, then interior shifter, then clutch pedal assembly, clutch hydraulics, manual transmission flywheel, clutch pressure plate, release bearing, fork, make sure that's all in place, manual shifter stuff inside the car, trans in, slave in, drive shaft in, K member in, heat shields on, exhaust on, stress member on, coating. So we have a long way to go yet today, but best way to get it done is to do it. That fluid looks real bad. Surprised it shifted as well as it did, honestly. So the exhaust fought quite a bit. I did get 2 studs out, but 2 broke. Exhaust is out, drive shaft's out, transmission's mostly unbolted. Still have to go for the converter bolts, but I'm just trying to get these peach red so I can hopefully air hammer them out. We'll see. I don't know. Not holding out a ton of hope here. All right, my pro tip, if you shear them off and they won't come out even with a glow wrench, and you don't have an acetylene torch, just notch into them with a grindy wheel and they'll pop right out either with a hammer or an impact. So still plenty of meat on there to do through bolts. Should be just fine. Anyway, torque converter bolts are out. To do that, it's just a hole right up in there. So we can get a better angle for you. There's 3 stubby 17 mil bolts, and then there's also a little baby 10 mil right up there. You got to get out too. So once you get those out, go for the bell housing, and that's what I'm going to do now. We're working with E12s in 4 corners. So we got 2, one on your right, one on your left, and E10s on the starter right there, E12 right there, E12 right here, and I think these are E8s. Should be 3 or 4 of those, depending on. Oh man, all right, let's get her done. So with the help of my fabulous neighbor Tom, we got the 5 HP 19 on this here wheel board, and I've got the 250 up here. I'm gonna pull the slave and stuff out of it. I'm gonna make sure it's got oil in it. I'm actually gonna pull the shifter assembly crap out now and go up in the car and get ready for that. Pull the flex plate off, get ready to put the clutch, flywheel. Sorry, my videography is not always the best when I have one hand doing it. There we go. I hope that release bearing is correct. Anyway, yeah, just a lot of prep. Since I took this out of a car, I made sure to save all these clips. If you're doing something like that where you're going to a junkyard, make sure you save these clips. They're like 30 bucks a piece if you lose them. But yeah, just gonna move everything out of the way, get the car back up, get inside of it, pull the auto shifter out, and then we'll come back bottom side. Just a few more steps, but we're only less than 2 hours into it, I guess, at this point, so not too bad. Another pro tip, I guess, if you're doing a wagon, it's got factory roof rails, ratchet strap the front hook to the roof rail and just tighten it up enough where you're not really pulling on anything. Biggest issue I run into when I'm putting the manuals in is the engine slumps forward organically. So either you have to jack up the front of the pan, which kind of sucks, which you could do if you have 2 jacks, but I find this is easier. If you have a sedan, You can pull the bulkhead stuff and you can go, I'm not really recommending this, but there's not much load on this, so you can actually go to the wiper transmission mount and you can do it that way. But this works really well if you're swapping a wagon. Before I go inside, I do need a Phillips screwdriver, a 10 mil, and I think we need a 4 mil hex too, but for sure a Phillips and a 10. All right, so we're gonna start by pulling the sunglass holder. There's 2 Phillips screws up in here. We're gonna take those out, and then we'll pull this entire surround out as well just by lifting. You'll see 2 Phillips screws down here. Once that tilts up and out, both of these have a single clip in the back to remove those. Then there'll be 2 more Phillips screws under there. This pulls straight up and off. A little bit tough to pull, but it will come off. 10 mil, I guess they're T30s, but a 4 mil hex actually worked just fine. One thing I forgot to mention, down there, you do have to take a couple of, I think they're 17s, and take that bracket off of the cable to get it up through this hole right here. Then just use whatever to plug that hole. I usually use the plug that is in the front side of the bell housing for the automatic transmission torque converter bolts. Seems to fit pretty well. And then we can put the shifter stuff up in here, which is pretty neat. Just slides right up on in. And then we can go through and take down all of the Phillips screws and pull out this sill piece. There's 2 Phillips screws in the hood release area to pull out the dead pedal so you can peel the carpet back enough. Then we have to pull out the electronic gas pedal, which is super easy on the early like 01s through 06s. It's just a single plastic tab on the side. You can actually see it's that little white thing. Then the pedal slides this way. That gives you plenty of room to push the plug out of the firewall and run the clutch line through. So 2-piece push clip there, a little plastic rotatey boy there, 3 Phillips, Phillips, Phillips. Pop this trim straight up, pop this trim out. The gas pedal, I can show you right there. There's the tab. Push down on that and the pedal will come out toward you. Set that aside and then work on pulling this out, and then you can actually pull the carpet down. The plug you're looking for is in the floor right about here. It's a rubber plug. I'll show it to you once I get there. But most of what we're going to be doing is up here. So you can see the 2 13 mil fasteners on the brake pedal set. We're going to take those out. We're going to unhook the brake switch wire. We're going to reuse that, but after that, take off this little metal clip right here, and then you will be able to, once you pull the 13s off, tilt the pedal assembly out. There's also one more up here, don't forget that. So let's do that real quick, then I'll peel the carpet back, and then we'll go over the clutch line installation. So here is the plug, and there's some foam behind it, so that's for the clutch line. And right here, push through that once and you are ready to feed the clutch feed line in. So I'm going to start with the hard line, put that in first, rest it under the slave, or master rather, and then I'll get the pedals in here, push the master line through there. I'll show you where that goes. Making progress. All right, we'll get into wiring in just a sec here. Just want to make sure I don't forget to put the clip back on the brakes. Yeah, so clutch line's in, snapped. Everything fits super nice. Oh, let's look under hood real quick so I can show you what to do with the clutch hose. So you can see it right down here. I'll have to lift that up. And the plan is you take a dike and you cut the nipple off of there really quick and then slide the hose on. There will be a fair bit of brake fluid that comes out, so be quick about it. But that's essentially what happens there. While you're at it, go ahead and take your 5 mil and open up this E-box. We're gonna have to run one small wire through that hole as well. All right, so I'm gonna tell you what I'm gonna do before I do it, just because once I've done a project so many times, and I acknowledge this, I'm pretty bad at actually kind of following through on telling you what I'm doing. So this black wire I ran through by the clutch hose. That goes up into the E-box in the engine bay and the engine computer. So the silver box with the black plugs, there's a bunch of connectors on it. The one on the far end toward the firewall is called X6001. That's where the main power goes into it. Count over X6002, X6003, which is the main harness computer, which is huge, and then X6004, which is the second to closest to you on the front of the car. Pull that, take the black plug out of it, not the gray one. You can do that just by using your fingernail on a tab and sliding it out. And then you'll take one of these little pinchy tabs, which you'll need a small screwdriver or a pick to release from your old automatic wiring in the center console. And you'll attach one to the blue-black wire. This we are going to plug in to pin 8 on that white box, EWS, and then your connector for your computer that will hook into this black wire is blue-brown. And what that's doing, I've covered this in my other videos, but it's going to take a ground signal, and when your clutch pedal is depressed, it is going to, let's see here, it's going to disconnect that ground signal. That's what it does. So when the clutch pedal's in the up position and everything's wired correctly, the ignition interlock is not sending power, but the ground signal is being sent to the computer. So you won't be able to start the car, but your cruise control will work, and then vice versa. So if the pedal's down, you're sending a 12-volt signal via that this guy right here to the EWS to start, but it's disconnected for the cruise, because when you're shifting, obviously you don't want the cruise control to flare the engine. So that's the essentials of what I'm doing right there. I'm just gonna hammer through it. You get power and ground from your brake light switch right here. The color codes coordinate, so there's no science there at all. Okay, that's fully wired. Make sure you're running it behind everything so you don't accidentally disconnect all your wiring while you're using the clutch. Get the light back out here. We'll notch a hole for the clutch pedal at some point. I've liberated the automatic shifter. Back up we go. We'll deal with the flywheel, fill up the trans. Getting close. All right, pilot's in and aligned. I'm using a 95 M3 clutch and flywheel because that's what I have down here and it's better. So 240 mil, brand new disc, non-self-adjusting, which is awesome. Clutch is bled. I have a video called How to Bleed Stubborn BMW Clutch Hydraulics. Go watch that one. It will save you a ton of time. Next up, I'm going to throw the trans in after I make sure there's no dowel. And I see there is a dowel. I have to take this out first because there's one on the starter. So I have to deal with that real quick. Then I'll be ready to throw it in. I already double checked that. I greased up the input. It's oiled. The only thing I'm a little worried about is having these smaller diameter bolts for this because the auto uses bigger bolts like the ZF. All right, I'll have to get rid of the trans lines and wiring when I'm done, but everything is in. Shifter, drive shaft, getting ready to do the heat shield, then the exhaust. Do have to sort this out, but I think I've found 2 suitable nuts and bolts. So yeah, just gonna keep right on slamming. So mechanically, it should be done. Clutch feels like it works. So EWS is not getting power. I have to recheck my wiring. Okay. Nice. Now to put the interior back together. All right. All good and proper. The clusters always fight me a little bit, but we got it done. So the check engine light's on because the cats suck in this thing, but no lights on for the swap. So we're good. Okay. Got everything bundled up. Let's see how she drives. The clutch is very stiff. Wow. That's right, this thing needs rear trailing arm bushings really quite badly. Might put a clutch stop in this. Trans feels good. This knob isn't quite fitting properly though. This thing's got a lot of caster, just wants to straighten right out. Sure reverse works. It does indeed. Oh, I didn't try cruise. Guess that might be a no. That's always a finicky one on these swaps. Still working through that. Oh, parking brakes are always in really good shape on swap cars because they're never ever used when they're automatic.